take a brief look at the Dataset menu within GeoPack Survey. Under Dataset, we have all of our dataset operations, such as New, Open, Edit, Save, Copy, Rename, Close, and Delete Dataset. Let's go over each one of these in order. First is Dataset New, which brings up the New Dataset dialog box, and that allows me to fill in a dataset name, which is retained from the previous dataset if there had been one, which is the case I have here. I can choose whether I would wish to create a dataset, overwrite an existing dataset, or append to an existing dataset. I will choose overwrite. I'm also provided with an area to type in a description, change my data source if necessary, and these settings are read from my project preferences, but I can change them at any time when creating a new dataset. I can specify an output directory. I'll leave mine blank, which will create the dataset in the same folder as my DGN. Use dataset name as output subdirectory. I have that checked, and that will create a folder in the same folder of my DGN, and that folder will be called Casey. Underneath that folder will be all my dataset files that are created, such as least squares reduction reports, OBS file, control file, and so on. To choose a dataset file to import, I have two icons. The first icon is Add Source File to List. That will allow me to pick one file to add to my list. The second icon will let me add multiple files to my list. Once I have files added to the list, which will be displayed in this area, I can highlight them and delete those files, or I can move files up in a list or down in a list if there is more than one file. I'll choose the first icon. I'm just adding one file to my list, which is a file from Georgia DOT, g.srv. I'll highlight that and click OK. Now you'll see the file name in my list and path to that file. I'll simply click OK to have that file converted into the GeoPack OBS format. You'll now see that the dataset name for the currently active dataset is displayed in my title bar of GeoPack Survey. And now we can take a look at the other options that are available for this dataset. There's Dataset Open, which is not needed in our case because our current dataset is already open. But what this will allow me to do is choose another dataset, perhaps KC2, and switch over to that dataset. At the top of the Dataset Open dialog box, I have the option to open the dataset editor, which would happen once I highlight a dataset and click OK. The GeoPack Survey editor would be opened. And I also have the option to show everyone's datasets. And what this will allow me to do is see datasets that other users have created instead of the default behavior, which is datasets that were created by the currently active user. I will cancel this, and we'll take a look at some of the other dataset options, such as Dataset Edit. This will take a moment to open, and it will open up the GeoPack Survey Data Editor, or what people call the OBS editor. Once the GeoPack Survey Editor is open, I can take a look at setups, points, and chains. The details for the GeoPack Survey Editor are covered in the OBS Editor AVI. I will choose File Exit, and then we'll take a further look down the Dataset menu under Dataset Save. That will simply save all the information in my currently active dataset, in this case Casey. Dataset Copy allows me to give a dataset a new name and a new description. Clicking OK will change over to that dataset and rename both the dataset and the description. Dataset Rename is very similar, and it will allow me to once again rename the dataset. And I also have an option here to open the editor upon renaming the currently active dataset. If the dataset already exists, I will get a message that the dataset already exists and then I cannot create. The reason for that is to prevent me from overriding any dataset that was previously imported. So knowing that, I'll change this to AFG for a dataset which does not exist, and then click OK. Now AFG will become my currently active dataset, and we can look at the other options under the Dataset menu for GeoPack Survey. Dataset Close will close the currently active dataset, and you will see that title removed from the GeoPack Survey menu bar. I'll go ahead and reopen a dataset using Dataset Open. Pick my AFG dataset, click OK, and now I'll demonstrate the last function covered in this AVI, which is Dataset Delete. Dataset Delete has two options. One is to delete the data files from the hard drive, and the second is to delete from the GPK. I will delete both the data files and the information from the GPK. Click OK, and we'll see that since dataset AFG had not yet been imported, that in actuality no survey chains and no points were deleted. If that was a dataset that had been imported into the GPK, I would receive valid numbers. I'll click OK to close that. To review, under GeoPack Surveys Dataset menu, the main dataset functions are contained, such as New, Open, Edit, which is covered extensively in the OBS Editor AVI, Dataset Save, Copy, Rename, Close, and finally Delete.